Welcome to the Blonde Runner podcast with Coach Lora Erickson, where she shares her healthy living tips as a running and triathlon coach and mother of 4.
Hello, Coach Lora here, and I just wanted to talk to you about cross training today. So, as a triathlete, I get a lot of cross training in my training, even in my run training now, and I actually came from a background of running, so I didn't have that cross training a lot. We didn't really do that as much in high school and college for me. As a coach, I've been coaching for nearly 30 years now, and I've discovered what a huge benefit that is to athletes to incorporate cross training into their training. So even for my run training athletes, I incorporate cross training in throughout their training. Sometimes I'll call it choice days for them, but most of the time it'll be cross training. So on the training programs, I usually have it as an XT. So that's what cross training means. And I just wanted to kind of define, what is cross training? What are appropriate activities for cross training? Most of the people I work with, I'm developing run training programs, and so for cross training for them, it's not running. I want it to be something that's non-jarring. So some of the activities that are really good are like yoga or Pilates. I do martial arts. That's a good one. So I've done bouldering indoor before. You're climbing. Other things would be even an easy hike would be great. The idea is that we're not jarring. So it could even be elliptical, something that you're just not getting a lot of jarring, and it shouldn't be really overly taxing. So if you're doing a running program and I've sandwiched a cross-training day in there between some other hard workouts, obviously you don't want to wipe yourself out with a cross-training activity. But the idea and the benefit to cross-training is that you're using your muscles in a different way. The problem with running training is everything is done in the same plane of motion. And so overuse injuries are common because you're using something the same way over and over and over. So with cross training, you're able to move your body in different ways. So I encourage you to find activities that like move you side to side if you're used to going forward all the time, if you're like a runner. So cross training, huge difference for me. It's prevention for injury, and that's something that you want to think about. Also, again, it's overused. If you feel, a lot of people, you don't lose all your fitness. If you get an injury, a lot of people will cross train and they're still getting activity, but they're not hurting themselves anymore. It really just depends on the injury you have. But a lot of times for injury, and matter of fact, one of the ways a lot of people have found to do cycling is because they have an injury and the doctor had them on the bike, or a physical therapist, that kind of thing, has them on a bike, and that's how they learn. So I actually think cycling is a huge benefit. Whether you're a triathlete or not, cycling has a huge benefit to runners. The reason why it doesn't have that jarring, but you're able to use the muscles. So a lot of times in my training, I'll have rest and recovery days, or R&R days. So days where I don't really have them do any physical exercise. Maybe they'll do an easy walk or some light stretching, and that's really important. But cross-training days are meant for movement. It's sort of an active recovery. You want to move the muscles to promote blood flow to the area, to get your body to recover and recuperate. So non-movement is good for some days, but some movement and different kind of movement can be very beneficial for different reasons. And there's lots of reasons for all those things. But again, other benefits of cross-training, for me, I know, after a while of running so many years, it's the same old stuff. And I guess it's still enjoyable. But there are days, and I'm sure everyone listening in has days where they're like, or it's crappy weather outside and it's best to go inside on a bike or something like that. But I've just found it keeps me mentally fresher. Because I don't get to run every day. I only can run certain days, or I only have so many miles my body will handle. And as we get older, that may even be more of the case for you. So having that variety, I know, like if it's a blizzard outside and I don't want to go running per se, but I could ride indoor, or I could go to the pool. It's just nice to have variety. Swimming is an excellent cross-training activity too. I know people that get injured, they'll oftentimes do what's called aqua jogging, and that can be a great thing. And I would encourage, if you're doing a training program, that if it says one thing, but your body is feeling like, I mean, sometimes it's good to push through being tired, but there's a difference between injury and tired. So especially if something's hurting on one side and not the other, that's probably an indication you might be getting an injury. Another thing you need to be considering, especially when working out outside, is if you're running on cambered roads or roads that have kind of a tilt. Sometimes you'll have a knee hurting and the other leg won't hurt, and that's because of the terrain. Again, it's a repetitive injury, and so or can lead to a repetitive thing that causes injury, like I said. So definitely being, aware of that kind of thing. But if you're just feeling it, maybe you're feeling emotionally, get something in, and maybe you don't feel like what's on the schedule. And it is good to discipline yourself to do what's on a schedule. However, there are times that it's totally okay, depending on the workout, for you to replace it with a cross training, or to again, cross training should be, I think, incorporated in every training program. If you have it in there, it's just going to keep you fresher, because you don't get to run every day. And for others, it'll be like, yes, there's a break, because running is hard. It's one of those hard things. But it's something that's going to keep your mind fresh, which is huge. It's a big thing. And it prevents the injury. One thing is, too, again, is not pushing it too hard on those days you don't want to get hurt. Other ideas, I work with a lot of people that like to incorporate their regular routine. And I had a particular client that hired me. She saw I did a lot of hiking and wanted to do a lot of hiking as well as training for triathlon, and said, yeah, you can totally incorporate that in. The one thing I will say, if you go on a long, arduous hike, that might take the place of a long run per se. So being careful with that. And of course I do consultations. So if you're not sure, how do I adapt this training for me, that is something that we can work together on and figure it out, because the last thing you want to do is miss the really important workouts. For most training programs, especially if you're training for a marathon or half marathon, that long run is important. And you can't just replace it with hiking every weekend. You have to do something else. You have to get those miles in, and then you can do something else some of the time. So hope that makes sense to you. So cross-country skiing is another activity, or a lot of people don't want to do a lot of skiing, but remember, you're getting some residual fatigue from those activities. And so that you might have to adapt training. I know a lot of people get on a training program. It only really talks about running, and so those other activities will impact how you train for the rest of your workouts. So just keeping that in mind. But again, I think cross training is really beneficial. Another thing that it really benefits people, and the people that I work with, is I let them have a little bit of freedom in their own training. If it's a choice day, they get to pick what they want to do. Plus, that helps me as a coach to see what activities do they enjoy. Do they pick to do on their own? Maybe they really like some group training in there. They want to incorporate a class. As I mentioned before, yoga is an awesome class. I take that. I usually do yoga at least once or twice a week. One usually on my own, one in a class setting. I don't stretch enough on my own. So when I take the class, I stretch a lot longer. Foam rolling is another good thing to incorporate into your training. And I'll have some other videos talking about recovery and things that are really important there. But just the important thing is just understanding what I mean by cross training in my training. And then if you are somebody that runs a lot of miles but doesn't really do anything else, I encourage you to try something else. You might find that Zumba is totally fun, and maybe you're not as very coordinated and you're in the back of the class or whatever, but it's fun to branch out. It tests your mind in different ways, and then it keeps running a treat. It's something you don't get to do every day. So that's a good thing. That can be a really good thing. It's sort of whatever you do for cross training should be somewhat rejuvenating to you, or it should be a change that makes running rejuvenating. So just something to think about. It can improve your fitness. If you're experiencing an injury, you definitely can incorporate more cross training, but make sure you talk to a professional to know, maybe your doctor or physical therapist or coach, to find out, what should you be doing there so it actually helps your fitness. I know a lot of people, when they get injured, they get really anxious about losing fitness, especially if they worked hard. But there is a way to maintain fitness with other activities. You'll be surprised. So, stair stepper, those kind of things. You want to eliminate that jarring for the most part with injury, depending on the injury, but definitely connect with whoever your health professionals are. I'm willing, obviously, to set up consultation. Let's work through it so you're not getting injury. So anyway, there it is. There are the benefits of cross training. I hope you incorporate it in. Until next time, live well.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. Be sure and check the show notes for resources or links that we mentioned in the show. You can also find them on my website at blonderunner.com, BLONDERUNNER.com. You can also find me on Instagram at The Blonde Runner with an E and Coach Lora Erickson, and that's Lora. Before you forget, I hope that you will follow this podcast and like it so you don't miss an episode. Also, it really helps if you leave a review so other people can find it, and share it with your friends. Until next time, live well.